Hey everyone, I'm Ian Douglas, the author of the website techinterview.guide. I do live streams every Sunday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern about topics relevant to interview preparation for the tech industry. I occasionally record longer Q&A sessions, and I've started to break those into smaller videos to post. And there'll be information at the end of this video about how to get in contact with me if you have additional questions. Let's get to it. Submitted was, what are some of the pros and cons of working as a contractor versus working full-time? And this one's kind of an interesting one. I would say, like, early in your career, it's probably going to be a little bit harder to find contract work if you want to get into like full-time contracting. It's not impossible, but companies that want to hire a contractor are looking for an expert. Like, you know, we had somebody come remodel our whole kitchen a couple of years back, and we wanted someone that knew what they were doing. We didn't want to just hire somebody that knew how to swing a hammer. Like, we wanted someone that could actually come in and do it properly. And it's going to be a very similar kind of thing with software development as well. If you get into contract work, people are going to view you as an expert. And this is where going into a consultancy job as an entry-level developer can feel a little bit high pressure because you're going to be expected to be an expert on things. And as an entry-level dev, you may have a lot of knowledge about one thing, but as a consultant, they may expect that you're kind of like a general contractor sort of thing when it comes to like construction work, where you know a little bit of everything. So you're kind of a jack of all trades or Jill of all trades, but you know, you may not have a good depth of knowledge in a lot of areas. You'll have depth of knowledge in a couple of areas. So pros and cons of working contract versus full-time really comes down to three things, I think: autonomy, taxes, and benefits. The autonomy side of it is like, what do you get to choose to do? When you are a full-time employee for someone else, they're going to be telling you what to do. There's a saying that I like that says, if you don't follow your dreams, someone will pay you to follow theirs. And it's pretty true that if you don't start your own business, someone's going to hire you to work at their business. And so the big thing around autonomy is, do you get to choose your work? Well, I did freelance work in Los Angeles area for almost 3 years, from 2000, sometime through 2006 through 2006, 2007, 2008, something like that. 2008, I got back into full-time work. And so actually, no, it was like 2005, I think. It was almost exactly 3 years that I did freelance work. And the autonomy of getting to work on the kinds of projects that I wanted to do and work with the kinds of clients that were interesting to me was kind of a big deal. Like, it was really nice to be able to tell somebody like, hey, you know what, I don't want to work on this project anymore, so, you know, I'm done. And, you know, start to wind up, you know, contracts and stuff like that. It is important that you write things into your contract, you know, as opposed to, you know, are you building a particular project and you have to stay till it's done, or are you just helping them with a project? Are you like what we call staff augmentation, where you're just like an extra body helping with something? And whether or not you have the flexibility to go take on, you know, other contract work. As a full-time employee, though, you're going to get told what to build. You may still have some autonomy as to choose what part of that job you work on, but a lot of the times you're going to get told what to build. The second big thing to kind of compare here is taxes. So working as a contractor, depending on your tax situation and so on, you'll probably end up paying your own taxes to the government. Both state and federal government, at least here in the United States. And that can get pretty expensive depending on geography and local laws and the size of your business and whether you're incorporated. And there's a whole bunch of things. I'm not a tax accountant. I don't even play one on TV. And so, you know, if you've got questions about it, you'll need to actually reach out to someone that knows about like business taxes. When you're a full-time employee, though, the company is generally paying all your taxes. Now, if they do what we call a contract to hire, they may hire you as a contractor for 3 months or 6 months just to make sure that you're going to fit in okay. You can almost think of it like an extended interview process where they're going to say, hey, we want to hire you. We're going to watch you build up this knowledge. We'll train you. And if it works out, at the end of that, we're going to convert you then to a full-time employee. But you may be responsible for paying your own taxes in that contract to hire period. So that's something that you would want to clarify with the company is, are you going to pay my taxes or do I have to pay my own taxes? Same. And then the third one is benefits. So same kind of thing there. As a contractor, you're generally responsible to pay for your own health benefits and insurance and things like that. Whereas an employee, hopefully your employer is paying for those things for you. Not always the case, but in the United States, it's actually very common for employers to pay for some amount of insurance. Sometimes as an employee, they'll pay like 100% for you, but if you've got family members, you have to pay for them, out of your paycheck kind of thing. So, that changes a little bit based on, the size of the company and so on. Carmen, good to see you in chat. Hello. So the other kind of sub-question with dealing with the idea of contracting is, how do you find clients? And what does it mean to do things like subcontracting and thinking about what kind of software you want to build? So as a contractor, I found a lot of my clients through, so 2005 through 2008. A lot of my work back then was a little bit of word of mouth and a lot of just telling people like, hey, I'm doing contract work. If you have any work that you need me to pick up. And it was me very much targeting smaller companies saying, hey, do you have any kind of project that I can help out with? By that point, I had already had almost a decade of experience. And so contracting work at that point, people are like, okay, well, you've clearly got experience. You've got like a pretty rich portfolio. You've got, kind of references and things like that they can call. Again, early in your career, it's going to be a little bit harder to kind of pull that off. It's not impossible, but it is a possibility. When it comes to subcontracting, that's basically where you might hire somebody to help you with a contract position. So let's say, just looking at folks in chat. So let's say Carmen wants to hire me and I've got way too much on my plate. And so I hire Creature Next to help me. Well, I'm just billing Carmen for all of the time spent. And Carmen maybe doesn't know that I wrote the code or Creature Next wrote the code. All Carmen knows is that I've given some code, as a result. And so I'm billing their company. Hopefully they're paying me promptly, but they don't necessarily know who wrote it. The nice thing about that kind of scenario is that now I can just hire more people to take on lots more work. And so if I go out and I, drum up a lot of business, I can then hand that contract work off to other people. The downside to that is now I'm an employer and I am responsible for paying other people. And so then it becomes a question of, well, are they contractors for me and they're responsible for paying their own taxes? Or do I actually hire them as full-time employees myself or part-time employees myself, pay them an hourly rate, and then I've got to pay all the business taxes and Social Security and all the stuff that an employer actually has to pay on your behalf. When it comes to contracting though, the other thing to think about is like, what sort of market do you want to try to fall into? Like, what kinds of things do you want to focus on? Do you want to build like automation tools? Do you want to build community platforms? Do you want to build like communication pipelines of like sending data from one system to another? Because that's really the pitch that you want to give to a business in order to kind of drum up that business in the first place, where you say, this is the kind of work that my company does. So you don't want to just say like, hi, I'm a contractor and I build software. Like, you want to be a lot more specific about it. You want to be able to say, I'm a contractor and I build this kind of software. This is my specialty. I work with business automation or I work with communication pipelines. You want to be really specific about it. That's how you're going to win people over and sort of make a name for yourself and for your business. So there are a lot of things in there. And so really you need to kind of figure out what kind of software do you like to build? And then how are you going to hone in on that? How are you going to get like a lot of depth of knowledge in how those things work and be able to, build those kinds of tools effectively and cost effectively as well, because you want to do it for as cheap as possible, but bill your customer for as much as possible. That's your job as a business, to make money. And so how do you do that with as little work as possible in order to maximize the profit potential that they're going to pay you? So anyway, those are a couple of ideas around like pros and cons of working full-time versus working as a contractor. So again, it comes down to the autonomy of the work, who's paying your taxes and benefits and things like that. And then how do you find the work and sort of make a name for yourself. And once you start to gain a little bit of success there, you'll find that the word of mouth kind of spreads, and people will actually refer you to jobs. And you can always go back to them and say, hey, if you were really happy with that, do you know anybody else that could use this kind of work? I'm looking for more projects and things like that. Now, as a new developer, you can approach businesses and say, hey, I'm trying to gain some experience. Do you have any small projects that I could take on? I highly, highly recommend don't ever volunteer your time to do it for free to build up experience. Some people will do that and they'll say, hey, I'm just happy to work. So whatever you'll pay me, even if that's $0, I think that can be counterproductive, because then it kind of falls under volunteer work and not professional experience. And so when it comes to, listing that on your resume as like a project or something about contract work, you do kind of need to be honest with folks and say, like, did you get paid for that project or not? And so that would be one downside there. So if you're new in the industry and you want to get into contracting, like I said, it's not impossible, but it can be a little more challenging to convince people you can do the job, but that doesn't mean you need to do it for free. So maybe a reduced hourly rate just to build up that experience. But it really depends on what the company needs and how long it takes you to build the tool. I could go on and on about, like, do you flat rate the project and say, I'll charge you $500 to build this no matter how long it takes? Because then they're going to do what we call feature creep, where they just keep adding, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Because you said $500. And so you want to be careful about, like, hey, for $500, I'm going to do exactly this work. And when it's done, if you want extra, then we'll like renegotiate on that. But if it's the, kind of a continuing build on software for somebody where you're just like constantly adding new things on, it can be harder to negotiate a higher rate later. So for example, if I start out and say, hey, pay me $25 an hour and I'll work on some sort of business automation tool for you. And then later on they say, hey, can you add this? Can you add this? Can you add this? And you say, cool. Yeah. Now I want to charge you $50 an hour. They're like, well, wait, you used to charge me $25 an hour. Why is it 50? And so then, it's a balance that you need to kind of make in there. So I would generally recommend, like, work a project for somebody, close it down, and then say, hey, if you've got other work, I'll come back in a couple of months and, kind of cycle back. But I actually want to focus my efforts on like some other area for a little while, and I'll circle back and check in and so on. Anyway, we could go on and on that. Hey, thanks for watching. I love helping people out with interview prep, and I hope this video helped you in some way. If you found this Q&A useful, please consider subscribing. You can follow me on Twitch as well for the live stream twice a week. Check out techinterview.guide/streaming for more information. I also have a daily email series that you can subscribe to on the website. There are never any ads, and when you finish the series, I scrub your information out of my database permanently. Finally, if you have a question that you'd like answered on the stream, you can find my contact info on techinterview.guide. I prefer LinkedIn or email. If you leave your question in a YouTube comment, it might take me longer to find it, but I'll see you next time.